When I was little, my father was famous. He was the greatest samurai in the empire. He cut off the heads of 131 lords. He was the greatest samurai in the empire. And he took me with him.
Hey everybody, I was going to put out this video last week, but I wanted to put a video with substance out before I remarked upon Antonio Subirats again. And the reason I'm talking about him again is not just to defend myself against his character attacks. If that's all it was, I wouldn't bother. But I've said it time and again that I like pointing out examples of poor thinking. And his recent actions have provided a great example of poor thinking that Globe deniers have. Many of you are aware that in my last video discussing him, I showed how he tried to rewrite the history of our conversations by deleting his comments and telling another tale in his favor. After that, he defended himself in a video saying that there were a number of comment threads that I had started where he commented and handed me my ass, and that I had deleted those and not copied them so there would be no record. That's just how diabolical I am. Now, I say no such threads existed because I very rarely start threads on my own videos. After all, I made the video. That's the start of the conversation. And he says they existed, but I purged all of his awesome comments. So it kind of puts us at a stalemate. But in his video, he says, hey, look, here's a bunch of evidence of Greater Sapiens starting all of these threads, dozens, hundreds of comments that are standalone comments by Greater Sapien with no replies. That's evidence that Greater Sapien deleted a bunch of comments on these threads and that he started. And that's what he did to my comments that destroyed him.
Look how many standalone comments he is making that don't have any replies to them. Why would somebody be making so many comments that stand alone? Why would somebody on their own channel place this many standalone comments, strangely without anyone placing any comments at any point between these that he has left there? I'm still scrolling. These are still, all of them, exclusively his comments.
And honestly, I have to say, I was taken aback when I saw this at first, because I know for a fact that I don't start threads on my own videos. Maybe a pinned one for extra information or something, but not dozens of threads. So I decided to look into it, investigate. So I go to this website called YouTube Comment Scraper, and it allows you to download all the comments on a video in spreadsheet format. This column shows who made the initial comment. These are replies, if there are any. Scrolling through the list of comments in chronological order going back in time, we see many comments and the replies to them. But then something odd happens about 4 to 5 years back. None of the comments have had any replies. There are dozens, hundreds of comments from different people, me included, but every one of them is standalone. It's kind of odd. I decided to look at the comments of 2 other videos I had made prior to that one. Same thing. 4 or 5 years back, all standalone comments. Let's check Jaro White's video from back then. He was the king of moon landing deniers back in the day. Same thing. Okay, one more. PewDiePie. His first video, 50,000 plus comments, all standalone before 2013 or so. So maybe I have a bunch of standalone comments 5+ years ago because I deleted all the replies on all my old videos. And maybe Jaro White and PewDiePie did it too, all around the same time. Or something else was going on. What could that have been? Oh yeah, Google Plus. Remember when Google Plus was screwing up all of YouTube's comments? That was 4 or 5 years ago. Some of you might not remember the colossal pain in the ass Google Plus was. It screwed up comment pages badly. People were pissed. All that standalone comment business is from that. All the comments back to around 4.5 years ago are fine. And here's the thing. Those exchanges I had with Antonio, they were not 5 years ago when all this craziness went down. The exchanges I had with him were 3 years ago, and the records of that time are fine. I wasn't starting a bunch of threads. I think there are 2, where I'm responding to someone who had blocked me. So Antonio's defense of, no, I kicked Sapien's ass on the other threads and he deleted those is unsupported. And the standalone comments of mine he shows as evidence of his deleted comments are over a year before our conversation. And so he's wrong. But it does demonstrate how the globe denial mentality works, doesn't it? He saw something that he thought fit his narrative and he ran with it without looking any deeper because it fit what he wanted to be true. Greater Sapien started threads and they have no replies. That means he deleted replies. I'm going to run with that. No need to look any deeper because I have the answer I want. That is the Globe Denier way. Now, with the explanation of the standalone threads out of the way, let me talk about the arguments that were being made at the time. And one reason I'm doing this is that globe deniers are arguing the moon landing more and more. Is it because they're running out of gas with the where's the curve argument and they need to get back to baseless conspiracies? I don't know. But Antonio wants to argue these points again, and he wants to change his old position in order to seem more reasonable. I'll try to sum up the arguments of the time quickly. There was this documentary called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and in it they made the accusation that the footage of the Earth was not being captured from a little past halfway to the moon like they claimed, but was shot from low Earth orbit through a round window. By the way, in order to have low Earth orbit, you have to have a globe Earth. Duh. Antonio Subirats and many others bought into this idea that the camera was so close to the window that nothing could get between it and the glass. My point over and over again was nowhere do the astronauts say it was that close. Yes, there is a point where they say the camera fills up the window, but that's not the argument Antonio was making at the time. The claim was that nothing, a hand, a cable, the edge of the window itself, could get between the camera and the window because it was so close. This is a great example of how the globe denier and the moon landing denier mindset works. You craft what you see and hear to fit what you want to be true. The astronauts said that the camera was filling up the window. That must mean nothing can get between the camera and the window. Since we see something between the camera and the window, they must be lying because they're faking it. Now, to this day, just the other day, he's using this clip from A Funny Thing as his defense.
This is Neil Armstrong, Apollo 11.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here, during another segment, also intended to air after review, Neil Armstrong falsely explains to the viewers how the shot is attained by putting the camera's lens to the window's glass, as it would have to be if they were the claimed distance away from the Earth.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
We only have one window with a view of the Earth, and it is filled up with the TV camera. That means Armstrong is saying the camera is at the window.
You see, the filmmaker tells you that the camera's lens is against the glass. And then they play Armstrong saying the window is completely filled up with the TV camera. And as much as Antonio wants to rewrite history and say it was just about the camera being at the window, you can see even at the time I was chastising him for trying to shift his claim. As I said, Antonio was defending the filmmakers who were saying that the camera was so close to the window, lens pressed against the glass, that nothing should be able to cross between the camera and its view of the Earth.
If the window was completely filled up with a TV camera, as he stated, then an astronaut's arm would not be able to get between the camera and the window, as it obviously does here in this outtake.
South America becomes invisible.
So as much as he wants to claim his position was different, we can see in his post that he was adamant in his position that the astronaut said the camera was against the window, as were many others at the time. And that's because they insist on letting the documentary tell them what to think. That's why he still uses the documentary instead of going to the original footage. Let's go to the original footage, which I have as a playlist. I'm going to play the relevant part without comment. You decide what you think is being said, and I'll tell you my thoughts on it.
11, Houston, could you describe, from your view, the polar cloud cap appears to us to extend down the western coast of North America. Would you estimate how far it extends down? Over. Trying to fit everybody into the window. It appears that the cloud cap comes down a little bit below the southern extremity of Alaska. Roger. We've 11. We've lost our picture here now. Okay, Apollo 11, Houston, we've got the picture back now. Unfortunately, we only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera, so your view now is probably better than ours is. Roger, we copy.
Okay, what do you think just happened and what was meant? Pause this. Think about it for yourself. Go back and watch again if you need. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I heard. The astronauts are filming the Earth. Houston asked for a description of what they can see. The camera view shifts and the Earth goes out of view and the Astros describe the Earth. NASA says that they lost the view of the Earth and Armstrong says the line, telling Houston that you have a better view than we do because the camera is keeping us from getting where we can see. It doesn't need to be pressed against the glass for that. The window was only 30 centimeters. It was just enough in the way that they couldn't get their big American heads in a spot to see. So they moved the camera to the side to look out. In other words, the astronauts never said the camera was that close to the window. They just said it was in the way. So I challenged Antonio to produce a quote of them saying that the camera was that close to the window. And he pulled out a clip from Apollo 10, which was asinine on its face, and I went over that in the other video. But it shouldn't matter whether or not the camera was at the window or pressed against the window. It shouldn't matter how the astronauts described it, aside from the fact that Subirats is trying to reframe his position. It wouldn't matter if it wasn't for the way moon landing deniers like him, the makers of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, purposely ignored facts in order to suit their agenda. The arguments Subirats was making, like the filmmakers, can be seen in this comment. If the camera is at the window or against the window, how can something like this object be seen? And I have no problem conceding that at this point, the camera is not at the window. Ah, Antonio would say. We agree that the astronaut said the camera was at the window at minimum, and here you are saying it's not. Why can't you just admit that this means the astronauts were lying? Because I've seen the original footage. You see, Antonio ignores the original footage. I can't say why. Is it because he can't get over what the filmmakers told him to think the first time? Is he just willing to ignore facts to push his agenda? I don't know. But the reason the camera being away from the window at this point isn't evidence of lying is because of a section of the original footage purposely left out of the documentary and ignored by Antonio.
Apollo 11, Houston, appears to us that we're seeing a view from outside plus a little of the inside. It appears you've taken the camera away from the left window. Now, over. That's correct. We're moving it back and reconfiguring for interior lighting.
He just said that they were moving the camera. It was at, near, filling up the window, but they're moving it now. But moon landing deniers ignore this exchange. Is there any wonder how people like Antonio go from being moon landing deniers to globe deniers? It's all just ignoring evidence. This section of video doesn't exist because it ruins their argument. Photos of the Earth don't exist. Gravity doesn't exist. Anything that works against what they want to be true doesn't exist. That is the globe denier way.
That's my job! That's no one on this planet to even challenge me.
Maybe you came by to congratulate me on last night's victory.